Here I am, first the divorce and then many years of grueling singleness, and now 37 with stage 4 cancer. And I started to feel this buzz in me. I'm like, what is this? And I'm a therapist, mental health, and I incorporate somatics into my practice. So I'm used to tuning into the body to get information. So I was like, is this like excitement? Like, why would I be excited at stage 4 cancer?
Put on your seatbelts because this episode, there's no slowing down. And before we jump in, I'm curious, and you'll hear why at the end, why I'm asking this. If you're watching this on YouTube, are you watching this? Are you single or are you married? We're curious to know our audience on a deeper level and try to understand what you're looking for. So either way, please comment down below. Obviously, you don't have to give any personal details. We're curious if you're watching this, if you're married, you're single. Obviously, you could comment anything else in the comment section, but that would be a huge help for us. I don't want to spoil too much for this episode. Liz is someone who struggled with finding her soulmate. And just when things were maybe couldn't even get worse, she had to battle stage 4 cancer. And she's here to tell the tale and to talk about the tremendous struggles, but also the tremendous hashgacha pratis, the divine intervention that happened in her life. This is a really, really powerful episode, and I'm so excited for you to hear it. This episode is powered by our good friends at BitBean. You will hear why they are the go-to for software development for companies. This episode is also sponsored by our good friends at To Lease. Yes, if you need a car, they are your people. And of course, the Tesla raffle. This episode is in memory of Miriam Sarbas Yaakov Moshe, as well as Shimon David ben Yaakov Shloima. This episode is also L'Refuah Shlema Yosef Chaim ben Devorah Chaya Golda. Make sure to watch the full episode. Here we go. Liz Wallenstein, thank you so much for coming in and doing this. Could you tell us briefly about your background and then your very interesting experience in high school?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Oceanside, Long Island. I went to school to Hafter, Hebrew Academy of the Five Towns. So I would say basically the biggest experience that stands out to me is as a senior in high school, I got this like crippling, devastating like back pain. I couldn't function normally as my friends are going to like pizza and movies. I'm at home on the massage bed and the rollers and no doctor could find anything wrong. Nothing.
Did something happen? Like, was there an accident?
No, I mean, doctors would try to attribute it to things. I had just come out of sleepaway camp, so they said maybe it was the mattresses in sleepaway camp. They couldn't find anything wrong, and nothing anybody was doing chiropractic was helping. Until somebody told me that they had heard on Howard Stern, which was a popular radio show at the time, that he had been cured of this like horrible back pain through this Dr. John Sarno. Who his whole thing is there's actually nothing physically wrong with you. It has to do with repressed emotion. And we thought this sounded a little bit kooky. This is 1997. So this wasn't so well known at that time, but we were desperate. So I went to him and sure enough, using his methods, zero physical interventions, just by focusing on my emotions and my inner world, my back pain went completely away and I was able to resume a totally normal life. And this had a big impact on me in terms of, it was my first introduction to the mind-body connection, to the effect that the mind can have on the body and on health, and just an introduction to like my inner world. I would say from there, the next thing was, so I graduated high school, going to seminary. So again, I grew up modern Orthodox. I'd always kept kosher and Shabbos my whole life. But I had this experience in seminary where I felt like I really got to know God for the first time, like what it means to be Jewish and to grow and Torah as the blueprint. So I got a little more religious than how I grew up, but I really developed this relationship to God. And at this point, I'm thinking, I'm bulletproof. Like I have the secret to the world. I've got religion. I've got this mind-body connection. What could go wrong? Well, a bunch of things. That's the answer. So what happened next was entering into shidduchim and coming from a modern Orthodox background. It's not like my parents were managing shidduchim, the way that it happens for a lot of other religious people. And this was right before dating websites started for Orthodox people. Obviously, no apps. So it was hard. And then at 23 years old, I already felt like an older single then. Most of my friends had gotten married already by then. I got set up with the guy that I thought, wow, he's the man of my dreams. Like he's everything that I'm looking for. We had similar goals. We had similar values. We had fun together. We had a strong chemistry. There was attraction. We had great conversations. Like I was like, wow, this is perfect. So we got married. Unfortunately, the marriage didn't even make it to 6 months. I remember we went to a marriage therapist, and I remember the therapist said to me early on, you're young, you don't have kids. I just want you to know you're allowed to say I made a mistake and try again. I was like, oh my gosh, that is not something you want to hear from a marriage therapist. It was also pretty shocking to me at the time. I was young and naive, and I felt like, what do you mean you go to a therapist? Like they just fix things. Like it was, I didn't have the understanding that sometimes there's something that could be, unfixable. And, but I was determined, that, and like the therapist said to me later on, you're holding on to a fantasy. Like you're never going to have the life with this person that you think you're going to have. You're never going to have the relationship you think you're going to have. And, he basically even got, my ex to kind of admit to me that, my ex thought very highly of me, but for whatever his challenges were, he just couldn't give me what I needed. And I remember I once had a rabbi, I spoke to a rabbi as this was going on, and he said to me, you know what, when a marriage is over, when it just throws you up. So that's what I felt like. I felt like this marriage had just thrown us up. And so, by the 6-month mark already, we were getting divorced. So this was like the first like major thing to really shake me. I was, incredibly devastated. I think at the day of my get, I was like 90 pounds or something. Like it was very, very hard, but it was very clear that it was the right and good thing. At that point, and everybody was telling me, even my therapist, like, you have so much going for you. You have what guys like don't worry, you're going to have no problem finding somebody again. Famous last words, because it didn't go that way exactly. So basically it took another 16 years or so till I got married again. So like 16 grueling years of singleness. Of course, I tried everything that you can think of 3 times over. I was tired of depending on other people, let's say for my shidduchim. I'll say also my experience with therapy. I asked the therapist at the end, I said, I guess now that I'm getting divorced, we're done. And he said something to me that changed my life. He said, yeah, you could say I'm not guilty of anything here and just move on with your life. But you can also say, I maybe didn't make the best decisions when it came to a major decision in my life. Maybe I should look into that. Maybe I should explore that. And I started my own therapy. And I was blown away by what I learned about myself, what I learned about relationships. And that's when I made the decision to become a therapist myself. Mm. So I went to Columbia to get my master's in counseling. And so at this point, newly single again and going to Columbia for my master's, I was like, all right, let me move to the Upper West Side because I didn't want to be dependent on others for shidduchim anymore. I'm short. So like I would get set up with short guys all the time. And now I'm like, okay, I'm short and technically divorced, even though I didn't really feel divorced, but I'm only going to get, short divorce guys. So I really didn't want to leave it in other people's hands. So I thought, okay, if I go to the West Side, that's where like a lot of singles live, then maybe I'll find someone there. So I spent about 4 years on the West Side and I really wasn't that happy there. It just, in my experience of it kind of just felt like, never ending summer camp. And I didn't feel valued there. I couldn't put my best foot forward there. So then I got a job actually working as a therapist in Flatbush, Brooklyn. And I thought, okay, I felt very religious on the Upper West Side. So I'm like, let me try Brooklyn. And I was amazed that there was kind of a singles community there too. There was a lot of single people and I connected with them. So anyway, going to events, the sites, everything, it was really, really difficult. And I happen to think that, I think people are well aware of a shidduch crisis, a singles crisis, but people don't really get like what's so difficult about it. It's not just that like, oh, there's tons of people who are single who can't find anything. And also I think that people tend to focus on like, oh, this being a women's problem. And I kind of get enraged on behalf of men when I hear that because there's actually like a ton of single guys who really want to be married also. And it's really hard for them that they can't find someone. And so something that's really hard about the whole shidduchim scene is you have all these people and they can't seem to pair off. Like people are just having so much, it just doesn't make sense. and makes things feel very hopeless, that it doesn't make sense. You don't see a solution in sight. And I remember, like, let's just say going to a friend was making a bar mitzvah, and, the montage part comes. And it just struck me what the pain of singleness is, because I watched my friend, like, what had happened in her life in 13 years. The multiple children she had, the house, the going vacations, all the milestones and the experiences. And that compared to like what happened in my life in the past 13 years was like the devastation that like tore through me at the realization of that. So I say like the real pain of singleness is just like life on hold, life on pause. And also, you go into dating like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, all excited and hopeful for your future. And it's your self-esteem gets the rejections, the frustrations. Like you lose your self-esteem, you lose your sense of self. And sometimes people like start to engage in just coping behaviors just to get by. And it's a real shame of what it does to a person's psyche. I feel like to me, that's like the real hard part and the real crisis of being single. So it was very hard. And then I got to a point, let's say I was like, I think I was about 35 years old. And I was having this conversation with God. God, what do you want from me? What am I supposed to do? This wasn't like the first time I had this conversation. It's more like time 30. But this time this like answer popped into my head and it said, nothing. I want you to do nothing. In fact, you kind of get out of my way and let me do my thing. So that was a big change in my kind of singles years was, I realized like maybe I'm actually trying too hard. Like I'm treating it as if I have to figure this out. I have to get the solution. And so I stopped trying so hard. And instead I just focused on my relationship with God. So I started doing gratitude exercises every day. I started doing, Hisbodedus, like, personal conversations with God. I started reading Living Amun every day or praying with fire, just things like to really help my spiritual growth. And I took a Jewish positive thinking class, which like we did visualizations and affirmations to help feel God's love for us. And for like the first time in years, I just felt so much better. I just had so much more peace, so much more positivity, even though things in, my outside life weren't changing. Like my happiness wasn't tied into outcome so much anymore. And I usually say, I think people usually expect me to say, and then I met the guy, that's usually how the story goes. But that's not what happens. What happened next was I felt this bump in my neck. And I went to the doctor and she's like, well, it looks like a swollen lymph node. And, did you go to the dentist lately? Maybe this is a reaction to a dental procedure. And I was like, I don't know, like maybe several weeks ago I went to the dentist, but okay. But then it wasn't going away. And I also noticed like I was getting, like when I would drink alcohol, like even just a sip of Kiddush wine, I would get these weird pains in my arms. And of course, went to Dr. Google. And I was looking at, what this could be. And nothing was really coming up. But then there was this thing on like a message board somewhere that somebody wrote that they had that when they had lymphoma. Like, oh no. So,
did that freak you out?
Yeah, absolutely. But I was trying to say, okay, it's on this obscure message board. Like,
right.
It's probably not what it is. So I go back to the doctor and I say, this bump in my neck isn't going away. And also like, I don't know, I saw something about pain in my arms and saw this message board about lymphoma. And she says to me, oh, everybody thinks they have cancer these days. You're fine. Like, okay. But then it just wasn't going away. And eventually she's like, okay, I'll send you for a scan. So I took a scan and I remember, I get an email, there's a new record in your medical records. And I went to go read it. And, it's in doctor speak. I couldn't understand it, but there was like a bunch of stuff there. And I'm like, this doesn't look like it's saying, oh, clean, nothing there. I'm like, what is this? So I had to call the doctor and be like, oh, did you see the message in my board? Like, what's that about? So she's like, oh, you're right. I'm going to send you to a hematologist. No, I didn't know what a hematologist was.
I have no clue. What is a hematologist? Yeah.
I think it's like a blood and lymph kind of doctor. No, she said oncologist. I would have gotten nervous, but I was like, okay, hematologist. So I made an appointment with a hematologist and I sat down with him and he said, I'm hoping it's Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Whoa.
I'm like, I'm not. Like, isn't Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer? And he said, yeah, but if it's not that, it's lung cancer, and lung cancer is even worse. I was like, I was just shocked, and so went for testing, went for staging. And
hold on. And so the way he delivered that was, I hope it's bad news, not very bad news.
Exactly.
We'll be right back to Liz's episode, but first, I'm taking you out to nature with me. I'm upstate for the summer, and you're probably thinking, Yaakov, what are you doing upstate all day? Well, I'm learning a lot of Torah. First off, my favorite book of the summer so far is Nach Daily. I don't know much about Nach. Likely you don't either. This book goes ahead and makes you not feel bad about it, but actually gives you a great macro view of exactly what's going on. Highly recommend this. Now, you might be into brainy stuff, and if you are, I highly recommend Amuna and Physics, because this is a book that really, really gets into it, answers big questions that maybe you had, maybe you didn't have, kind of a brainy book. And last but not least, Jewish Astrology is a book that I don't have with me this second, but it's something that I have started off, and it is taking me on a journey. Maybe we'll do a whole episode about this. If you like these books, or maybe any book at Mossaica Press, you can use the code word INSPIRE, and you will get a whopping 15% off the books. This is for a limited time, so go ahead. Highly recommend these books or any of the books on their site. Use the code INSPIRE, MossaicaPress.com.
Now, before we jump right back in, I went to the BitBean's headquarters to see actually in and out what they're doing. And they have the massive team of so many men and women that are designers, coders, thinkers, project managers. They hire really good people, and their work culture, which I don't know if you're looking for a job there, but they have such good work culture. Their goal is get the job done. I don't care if you're working at 3 a.m. or if you're working at 4 p.m., whatever it is, you live your life as long as you get the task done and make sure our clients are the happiest, then you're good to go. And I think that culture is so important in today's day and age. And what BitBean does is they go into companies, whether you're in real estate, healthcare, or I don't know, you have shoelace company, whatever it is, you have a company, they can help you with custom software. We are living in 2025. If you don't have custom software for your business, I don't want to freak you out, but we're in 2025. Okay. Maybe AI is going to be doing it for you in 5 years. But for right now, you need custom software to really maximize the potential for your business. We've done it with Living L'Chaim, and Baruch Hashem, we are where we are because we've invested in with companies like BitBean to help us succeed. And your company needs to succeed just as well. So go ahead, go to bitbean.com and just book a call. I know you might be skeptical, but book a call. You have nothing to lose. They're not pushy salesmen. They're good people. Go ahead, check out bitbean.com. Now back to this week's episode. How did you, as like a person who didn't really suspect, I mean, maybe suspected, but you didn't think you had cancer, being told that way? It's very shocking.
Yeah. I mean, it's like these guys are doing it, several times a day, every day. So they don't realize, I mean, they must think every now and then, but like what a big deal it is to get this news. Like I didn't even have anyone with me. I just wasn't expecting this big, bad news. But yeah, so they did the testing and apparently, it was Hodgkin's lymphoma. I guess, thank God, right? According to his logic. But it had gotten inside of my lungs, and the scan showed it, several, cells of it throughout my body. So I had gotten stage 4. So, here I am, first the divorce, and then many years of grueling singleness. And now I was about 37 when I was diagnosed, 37 with stage 4 cancer. And first thing that happened to me, I started to feel like this buzz in me. I'm like, what is this? And so I'm a therapist, mental health, and I incorporate somatics into my practice. So I'm kind of used to tuning into the body to get information. So I was like, is this like excitement? Like, why would I be excited at stage 4 cancer? Like, what is this? And I decided to myself, like, what if this is my Akedas Yitzchak moment? Like, what if this is an opportunity? Like, for so many years, I have felt stuck. And what if this is some kind of door? And another thing that came to me was the Yitzchak Sarah. Sarah laughed. And, I don't want to make my own pirushim, but I was thinking like a laugh of irony, because this felt extremely ironic. First of all, I was young for cancer in general, but I was kind of young and old for this cancer because Hodgkin's lymphoma is a cancer that kids sometimes get. Like a lot of people get it around 20 years old, actually. But then it doesn't go, the chances decrease until like 55. And I was 37. So I was somewhere in between these ages. So I don't have a strong family history of cancer. And I was also like, at that time, I was starting my days with lemon water for the detoxifying properties and then a green smoothie for the antioxidants. And like just another crazy thing, like I don't like working out, but I wanted to have exercise. So I bought myself like a mini trampoline so I could do like a fun workout on it. And it happens to be like mini trampolines are good for your lymph system. And I had a cancer of the lymph system. Like it just, all of it just felt very ironic. So I decided like irony is an opportunity. Like there's a calling in this for me. This is meant to be something. So I decided that I wanted to keep it a secret as best as I could. I knew that, assuming I survived, that it would be bad for tzedaka and for that to get out. But that wasn't even my reason. It was that like I was feeling pumped. I was feeling positive. I'm being sent on a mission. And I didn't trust that anybody else would have that reaction. And I didn't want that crowding out my positivity. Like I like to say, for anyone I did tell, like, when you tell someone you have cancer, you could see on their face what happens. Like the first look is like, oh my gosh, are you going to die? And then it's like, oh my gosh, am I going to die? Because if you can get cancer, that means I can get cancer. So I'm like, okay, I don't need my cancer to be coming about anybody else. And I kind of made up like how I wanted to handle this. So instead of saying cancer, I would say Hodgkin's, because Hodgkin sounds like a cute little children's character. Like, here's Hodgkin's, Instead of chemo, because there's all kind of negative associations with chemo, I called it treatment. And, I even asked whoever did know, I'm like, don't ask me like, oh, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Because then that just calls attention to the negative. And I said, just you could say like, what's up? One of my friends said to me, she's like, but how do I show you that like I'm concerned or I care? I'm like, send me cat memes, So I got a lot of cat memes. And I was really determined to like not go by all the associations that are attached to cancer and chemo and all those things, but to really create my own associations. And I barely felt sick throughout the entire treatment. I functioned close to normal. And I want to be transparent also that, they say like for oncologists, like Hodgkin's lymphoma is their favorite cancer. The way they put it to me, they're like, oh yeah, it's curable. I'm like, oh, it's curable? Like, great. You're like, yeah. Like you're stage 4, that's like 85% survival rate. I'm like, 85% is not curable. 100% is curable. But yeah, I just decided like, this is about opportunity. This is about mission. So one day, it was like all day long, the chemo. And you have to understand, like, these nurses would come in like full on hazmat suits to administer this stuff that they're just putting straight into my veins. And like, you always knew who was pregnant or like trying to get pregnant because they would come in like a spacesuit, like a helmet and everything. Like that's how hazardous this stuff is. And they're just shooting it into my veins. And so there's this bright red, there was like a few different chemos you have to do. And there's this bright red one. And they're like, just warning you, when you have to go to the bathroom, it's going to be red. So we had a joke with the nurses like that. Also, nurses are just, they make or break your experience. They were just unbelievable. I had a joke with the nurses when it was like red pee time, So it was one of those times. And so at this point, they had started with doing it into my veins, but some got out, my arm started to burn up. And so they put a port in and then I was getting, through infusion. So I'm taking my infusion pole with the chemo attached to it and, walking down the hall to go to the bathroom. And I look down the hall and I feel like I recognize somebody. Like I'm looking at him and I'm like, no, it can't be. I'm like, I think that's Dr. Sarno. Now you have to understand, like this is 20 years later. He's in his 90s. He's retired, but I just recognized him from over 20 years ago. And I'm like, this is like too big to be a coincidence. He was there for a doctor appointment of his own. So I start running down the hallway, like with my beanie on and my slipper socks and holding this pole. I'm like, Dr. Sarno, Dr. Sarno. And he turns around, it's him. And I was like, I was your patient 20 years ago. He's like, oh, wow. But then he like looks at the poll. I'm like, it's Hodgkin's. I said, but I'm doing so well. I'm getting great results. I'm barely, feeling sick. And I really you started me on this journey when you taught me about the mind's effect on health and the body. Like, thank you. Thank you for giving me this gift. And for me, running into and he died later that year, by the way. So running into Dr. Sarno at this time, like, what are the chances? To me, this felt like a real hashgacha pratis moment, like a real God wink of I got your back. Like you're handling this the right way. You're passing your test.
It's irony again, just in like the other way, Right.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of irony. And, my saying irony is opportunity. Oh, and I want to say also, cancer was one of the best times of my life.
Interesting.
I know. I felt like I was in this little cocoon of just me and God. Like, I felt like me and God in cahoots. Like, it was just the two of us against the world. And also, like, when you're dealing with life and death, when you're, dealing with major things, like a lot of things just fall to the wayside. Like, even a lot of things you gave a lot of energy, your importance to before, just they don't feel important anymore. So I just felt like I was in this little cocoon of just the only things that matter in this world. And like, God's sending me on this mission, and just, it was a very, very special time. And it was amazing. So, I mean, if I had to do it all over again, no, I would not do it. But I'm so glad about how I responded to it because, basically, like, yes, I did everything the doctors told me I needed to do. I took care of it medically, but I didn't make that time about sickness. I made it about, again, this mission that I was being sent on and my relationship to God and giving it my own associations. And that just it was such a special time. And so I knew when I went into remission, thank God, but, I had to leave that time. I had to leave the cocoon and that was very hard. So, I hadn't dated in over a year or anything. So it was hard getting back to that. And there were some, disappointing things there. I like to say that even though it was a very good time in my life, the whole losing the hair and, having to put on a wig, being, now 38, living in Flatbush, Brooklyn, wearing a sheitel when I'm single because I'm going through chemo, I refer to that as, the kapara part of the story, that was extremely difficult. And so now I have to date and I'm wearing a sheitel and I'm keeping this secret. It was funny. Because I was keeping it secret, I had to come up with the story of why I was wearing a sheitel. I mean, I don't know if people really believed it. They probably suspected something was going on. But I would say there was some kind of hair accident. So I told my friends, if I don't make it, you got to go around the world lecturing about hair safety. We're taking this story to the grave. So then when my hair started to grow back enough, I had this, short boy hair look and I have to date with this now. So sure enough, in that first year that I went into remission, I met my husband. And we actually met through a Jewish dating app. It's hard for me to say that I always recommend that because you get a lot of bad experiences through that too. But that is how we met. So meeting him, I don't know, I feel like in a way my experiences prepared me. What was different when I met him was, first of all, there was a sense of shleimus. It wasn't like I was head over heels in love and so excited and off the wall chemistry, but there was just this idea of pieces coming together. There was just a wholeness to this. And also I found that so dating him or meeting him, knowing him was very humbling. So just to give you a little bit about my husband, he comes from a hard background. His father basically abandoned him at birth. He grew up just him and his mom. They were very poor. He was alone a lot because his mom had to work. He himself had jobs ever since he was 14 years old. And he actually, to make money when he graduated high school, he joined the army. And right after he graduated, 9/11 happened. And he's in Iraq for 3 years. And what struck me about my husband was he treats things, I remember telling him on my third date about the cancer. And I had to say also, look, it went really well, but of course they're going to watch me closely for the next 3 years at least, for signs of relapse. And he's like, and if God forbid it comes up again, we'll just deal with it. It didn't scare him at all. And I realized like the reason why it didn't was he's had nothing in life handed to him. Like a lot of the things that we take for granted as just being normal life, he didn't have. And so he just had this like awareness and knowledge that everything is a gift, like everything is gifted to you. So I felt like he approached dating like I think a lot of us are like, you know, what do I want? You know, everybody's on the chopping block, you know, do I want this? Do I not want this? And I mean, look, there was people he said no to. It's not like he said yes to everybody, but he kind of came to an approach with like, who does Hashem want for me? Like, who am I? His humility was humbling to me, and it really showed me kind of like what's missing in shidduchim. You know, I think if we had that kind of humility, if we had that kind of ayin tov, because that too was like, with him, I was just able to see what was good. Like, I know like other people would hold his story against him, and they have, you know, oh, I really want like a family. You don't really have a family. Or he's also a later in life Baal Tshuva. He became from like, you know, sitting in Iraq made him think about God. So he came from around 27. Oh, you know, I really don't want somebody who came from so late. Like his story wasn't the perfect story, but I was able to, you know, see him with an ayin tov.
We're going to jump right back into this week's episode. But first, I know how annoying it is with the challenges that life could throw at us. Of course, there's sometimes very big challenges. In this episode, we're discussing very big challenges. But I'll tell you a small challenge, right? I was driving, and then all of a sudden, got a flat tire. It's annoying. Got to get repaired. And then, you know, the next week I'm going, our car is not in good condition. And we spend so much time in our cars, and I don't drive a fancy car. I drive a Prius. My wife drives a Honda Pilot. But when you get cars, you want to make sure that the only times where you need to interact and talk to the car dealership is when you're getting the car. And you know that it's a good car dealership when you just speak to them when you actually buy or lease your car, and that's it. And our good friends at To Lease is exactly that. They are menschlichkeit. I don't know if that's a word, but they are a complete mensches, and they actually want to help you get the best deals possible. So if you're like, you know what, I just want the best deal, call To Lease. If you want just good people, call To Lease. You're like, yeah, but I'm very particular about my car, and I always want the latest this and that. Call To Lease. They're simple to deal with, they're easy, and they have the best prices on the market. So call 718-871-8715. Or of course, you could email them at inspire@wheelstolease.com or visit them at wheelstolease.com/inspire. Of course, you might like WhatsApping. I personally like WhatsApping. So Saul, our good friend at To Lease, you could just WhatsApp him directly in the link below, and he will hook you up. Now, I've got something you seriously need to hear. The 11th annual Tesla raffle is live, and this year it's bigger than ever. You're not just in the running for a Tesla. You could win a Rivian, a Lucid, another premium electric car, or just take $50,000 cash. Yes, that's real. But here's the heart of it. Every ticket supports ChesedChicago, the tzedaka led by Dayan Shmuel Fuerst, helping families in crisis through over 80 programs, from food and furniture to job support and governmental help, all done with dignity. And only 9,999 tickets are going to be sold. That's it. And once they're gone, they're gone. So your odds, way better than most raffles. And here's where it gets even better. Use promo code L'chaim at CCRaffle.com and save $25 off 2 tickets, or a whopping $500 off 15. It's the best way to boost your chances and do something that truly matters. So go for it. Enter today, help someone in need, and maybe change your life too. CCRaffle.com, promo code L'chaim, win big and help even bigger. Now back to this week's episode.
So when I got engaged, it's funny. Like people would say like, oh, mazel tov, and go on fertility medication right now. Like don't wait till you get married. Like just try fertility medication now. And I said to them, I'm like, I understand why you're saying that. Like, I'm going to be 39. And, you know, even for people who didn't just go through 6 months of chemo and didn't just have, you know, stage 4 cancer, and that could be hard to get pregnant at that age. I said, but if I do that, I'm not giving God a chance to show me what he can do. So I said, you know, I want God to show me what he can do. Maybe it'll come to that. But sure enough, 9.5 months after we got married, my son Yehuda was born, you know, healthy, happy boy, Yehuda to give thanks to Hashem. And then 20 months after that, and another healthy, happy baby boy. We named him Shalom because Shalom is considered the ultimate blessing. It was funny because I moved to Florida a year ago. I took a picture like of my family in front of the house to send out to friends and family, like, you know, we got here, we're here. And my best friend from childhood calls me up like sobbing. I'm like, what happened? And she's like, you have the husband, you have the kids, you have the house in Florida. These are all the things you spoke about for years and years you always wanted. And now they're here. So yeah. And I feel like, I refer to my marriage as the miraculous marriage, because all the years that, let's say, I had everything going for me and I was trying everything, and I was what they say does well. I was the size 2 and I had my long flowy hair and I was always dressed to kill and I was nice and I was interesting to talk to and all of that. Like all those years it didn't happen. And then when the odds were most against me, when I had just gone into remission from stage 4 cancer, I had my short boy hair. I, even gained some weight on chemo. I was 39, which is like a death sentence in the tzedaka world. That's when it happens. That's why I share my story with people is, I refer to it as like the miraculous mindset, having bitachon and not just that, but anivus, like humility, to be able, and an ayin tov, like those I found were like the necessary ingredients that at the end of the day, circumstances don't matter. You got to look through the circumstances to what really matters, and anything becomes possible. And you do that, you make yourself powerful, and yeah, anything becomes possible.
I'm curious the Dr. Sorno stuff. Could you give us an example of something that he taught or teaches?
Yeah, sure. So he became well known originally around back pain. And his thing is that these things actually go in trends. So let's say today, I would say you see a lot of pelvic pain. So then it was back pain. And basically that, yeah, there is something happening within the body, but there's no abnormality. Like there's something to create the pain, but there's no abnormality. You don't have something wrong. You're not unhealthy at all. It's repressed emotion. So basically, it doesn't even have to be that anything major happened. Nothing major had happened in my life. It's just how you deal with your emotions. So if you're disconnected from them, if you repress them, if you're kind of a stoic type person, your emotions get trapped in the body and it results in physical pain. And so his whole thing is, not every pain, but maybe most cases of pain is this. And by paying attention to your inner world and knowing what's happening and getting in touch with your emotions, the pain can completely dissolve. And that's what did. So I'll say with cancer, I wouldn't call that a mind-body thing because there is something wrong that needs treatment. Sure. And that's what's different. But I think where your mind is and where your heart is affects treatment. It affects even problems coming up or not. It affects how well you do, how you feel. And that's why I was able to apply that to cancer as well.
I was in Camp Simcha, and actually one of my campers, Eric Sprintz, had Hodgkin's lymphoma. He's doing great. But I remember, again, this is a few years ago or over 10 years, and they were saying in camp, one of the doctors, he said, like, scientifically, it's proven that when someone's happy or going through life in general, but specifically with cancer, it affects the results, which is like a little scary, but they were giving over the importance of like, you are like on a big mission here to make sure that these kids have the happiest summer so they could go through whatever they're going through. And it sounds in line with what you're describing here. Yeah,
absolutely. I totally think, you are where your mind is. And that's why I made that decision to look for the positive. And there was, hiccups along the way. There were setbacks, but I just didn't pay attention to that. I only paid attention to what was good. I looked for what was good. I said, this is good. And I looked for the opportunity in it. And I think that's why I barely felt so sick and I got great results.
For someone who wants to reach out to you, because you mentioned you're a therapist, what kinds of people do you work with and where's a place that people can find you?
Thanks. So I work with adults, individuals. I work with a variety of life issues, relationship issues. But yeah, I have a joke that they say, therapists become therapists because of their own issues. And I say that's absolutely right for me. I'm very passionate about helping people who've gone through things like I've gone through. So I do have a mind-body specialty, and I'm very passionate about working with singles. I feel like I do bring a unique perspective to it from having been there myself that like you just don't get if you haven't been through it. So I have a website, Liz Wallenstein Therapy. I like to do, LizWallensteinTherapy.com. Thank you. I have
We'll have a link in the show notes for anyone listening. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, thanks. And I have a video series on YouTube. So Liz Wallenstein Therapy on YouTube. On Instagram, I have Liz Wallenstein for general, growth and wellness stuff. And then I have the Jewish Single Solution for singles on Instagram.
Do you ever look back at your life, even like 10, 15 years ago and like look at where it's now and everything you've gone through, both the hard and also the good, and like be like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah, like I was just, I was on the plane yesterday to come here and I came with my family and I looked over at my kids and I was just like, had this moment of like, wow, like I can't believe they're mine. I can't believe this is my life. Like I'm just in amazement.
I guess my final question for you is what advice, without like giving away your future, what advice would have you given to yourself when you were younger or like right before you went through all of this?
Great question. So like I was saying before, you are where your mind is. I think I also say, even though I'm a therapist, I bring spirituality in a lot. And I say, therapy helps you to heal and grow, but spirituality makes you limitless. Mm. And I'm also, I have my lines that people know me for. And one of them is, God has a funny way of playing favorites. So when you think that God is really far away and you think that he's abandoned you, that's really him standing right here. Mm. And the reason why I share my story is it's not even just for single people or for people with illness or pain. We all have our Kedas Yitzchak moments. And I really think that if you treat it as a mission, like again, I didn't make my cancer about being sick. I did what I had to do, but it was about my mission. So if you lean into it to look for your calling in it, what's your test? How are you meant to grow from this? A big, lesson also is I've learned that happiness is not getting what you want, it's wanting what you get. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of what I learned from my husband too, from when I met him, was just saying like, what's the most I can make of from where I am right now? And, I'm surprised at how empowering that is. There's people who maybe like, they'll look at me or they'll hear my story and be like, I would never want that for myself. And I look at people, and I'm like, who could look like the very good, very smooth lives. And I'm like, oh no, like, I hope they don't miss the point of life. Mm. So many people go through life missing the whole point of it. And I really feel like I'm really getting out of life what I'm meant to and contributing what I'm meant to contribute by, using my experiences.
Is it safe to say that if you didn't go through the transitions you've gone through, that you wouldn't have necessarily ended up with your husband? Like maybe you wouldn't have even thought of him as an idea, because it would have been like, that's too random for me.
So, I joke that if I had met my husband in my 20s, I don't think I would have gone for him. Mm. Just because our backgrounds are so different.
Also, I want to point out, I just met him before. He's very tall. And I feel like people are like, oh, too tall, you're too short. It's never gonna...
You know how many tall girls I had mad at me? Like, how could you take one of the tall ones? And I wasn't looking for that. I didn't mind short guys, Our backgrounds were so different. It felt a little funny to me in the beginning. I felt like, could that really work when you don't have so much commonality? So I feel like all of my experiences were to humble me, to get me to where Hashem needed me. And like where I said before, I think that the whole losing my hair and having to wear a wig thing was the kapara part of my story. I really think that my experiences were making me a keli, or making me a vessel for what Hashem has in store for me, or what he wants me to do with my life. So I feel like it was making me who I am and who I need to be for what I'm going to do.
Liz, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I hope that anybody with any struggle can take some direction from this, and that's why I share it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching or listening to this week's episode. If you made it to the deep end, put in the word inspire in the comments. I don't know if we've ever used the word inspire. I know we use it for a lot of our promo codes, but put in the word inspire. I want to thank our dear sponsors. Thank you again to our good friends, Wheels to Lease. Go to the Tesla raffle, use our code word, help the people in Chicago and get mitzvahs Ad Bliad. And of course, maybe you'll win a new Tesla or a Rivian or wherever. Thank you to our good friends at BitBean. Support our supporters. And of course, we are very selective, and it hurts me because there's so many people who want to throw money at us and say like, please advertise our business. But there are so many businesses we don't believe in, and we're not going to steer you wrong. If we don't think they're good for us, they're not good for you, and we turn them down, and it is what it is. And it's not easy for us, but we believe in the integrity, and we are very transparent, and we really believe in our advertisers. So please go ahead and support them, whether you need clothing or a new car or software development or whatever it is. Go ahead and help our sponsors. Now, this story is one of those stories that you really go through life. We all go through life, and there are challenges, and it's scary, but there are big challenges that we have to deal with. I think Liz had to deal with a bunch of them all at the same time, but I think it's clear that the more we go through life knowing that we're part of a bigger picture, we're in Hashem's hands, and He's taking us through it. So yes, it is dark, it is scary. You know, Liz had very scary moments, but Baruch Hashem, she's on the other side, and she has a beautiful family, and she's Baruch Hashem healthy, and she should continue like that. I know a lot of you are watching this, and you're going through good times, you're going through bad times. I mean, there's a lot of people, and I think the message is clear to continue on, breathe, get the help that you need, work on your emunah, work on your bitachon, practically work on the areas of life that you could work on, and never give up. Remember, inspiration is everywhere. L'chaim.
Living L'chaim.